The North Pole, a seemingly endless wasteland of Arctic ice, shrouded in darkness for 6 months of every year. Here, there is no food, no shelter, not even a cave to hide from the slashing winds, and temperatures that can dive to 90 degrees below zero. But according to mainstream geology, beneath the pole and the Arctic Ocean lies the Earth's mostly rocky crust, up to 30 miles thick. Below this is molten rock, heated by the planet's spinning core, with a solid center of iron and nickel the size of the moon. Scientists have deduced this information from measurements of Earth's gravity, magnetism, and seismic waves. But no one has ever seen these areas. Could the frozen surface of the pole be hiding a gateway to a world within our surface world? There are those who believe the answer is yes. And what they believe is known as the Hollow Earth theory.
The Hollow Earth theory is that this Earth is not molten inside. It is actually hollow. And that suspended in the hollow of the Earth is an inner sun.
Surprisingly, the notion of a hollow Earth was first given scientific credence by one of the founders of modern astronomy.
The idea that the Earth might be hollow as a scientific notion dates back to the astronomer Edmund Halley, who is best known for his comet. In 1691, he presented to the London Royal Society his hypothesis that the Earth is hollow and contains several little spheres inside, sort of like those Russian Matryoshka dolls. He was hypothesizing this for a very practical reason. The Earth's magnetic pole moved a little bit every year to the west. And his idea was that our outer sphere had inner spheres that turned independently of the outer one. He also suggested that these interior spheres would also be able to support life.
In 1818, former U.S. Army Captain John Cleve Sims, Jr. announced that there were vast openings at each pole where we could enter inner Earth.
With Sims, the idea of a hollow Earth gets tied into exploring for the pole. At this point, nobody had actually seen Antarctica, for instance.
The hollow Earth theory again captured the public's imagination in 1864 with the release of Jules Verne's second novel, A Journey to the Center of the Earth.
The novel takes an Icelandic guide and a professor and a young man down into the center of the Earth. Journey to the Center of the Earth could really have been called a journey to the center of geology. Geology and paleontology were a very hot topic in the early 1860s, and there was a lot of discussion of that in Journey to the Center of the Earth.
But while Verne popularized the idea that extinct life forms might still exist inside the Earth, others envisioned that the Earth contained advanced underground civilizations.
Supposedly, they have advanced technology. They've got ray guns and special weapons, and even they have flying saucers and other craft like that.
But is there any evidence that such fantastic claims could be true? And has anyone actually been to the world within our Earth? Proponents of the Hollow Earth theory say yes, and that one of the explorers was no less a luminary than famed polar pioneer Admiral Richard E. Byrd. In the 1920s, Byrd made world headlines by flying over the North Pole and by becoming the first man to fly solo over the South Pole. But Hollow Earth theorists believe that the famous explorer went even farther, and that on February 19, 1947, Admiral Byrd piloted a plane through a hole near the North Pole into the interior of the Earth.
Flying saucer type craft took control of his airplane with some kind of tractor beam. And they landed them near an inner Earth city. And the message that they had for us was that they consider themselves the guardians of this planet, okay? He says, we don't approve of you people using nuclear weapons. We had just blown up a couple of cities in Japan a couple of years before. So this was the message that he was given. But when he got to Washington, they put a lid of secrecy on this, that this was not to go out.
The Vatican. Vatican City, Italy. In the 17th century, Pope Paul V ordered select documents of the Catholic Church moved from the Vatican Library and closed to outsiders until 1881. Today, the Vatican's secret archives are closely guarded, and some researchers believe they contain revelations so explosive that they threaten the doctrine of the Catholic Church.
You have to wonder if the secret library at the Vatican, which they acknowledge exists, doesn't have records or chronicles about extraterrestrial contacts that the Catholic Church has recorded and knows happened, but is keeping a secret.
Might the Vatican's secret archives contain the details of messages Giordano Bruno may have received from extraterrestrials? Information that supports his pronouncements about the universe.
When we look at certain specific examples, like Giordano Bruno, we know that there was so more to it than this. The Vatican archives, whenever they're going to be opened, are going to reveal extraordinary levels of details.
According to researchers, the Vatican's secret archives holds hidden evidence connected to the miracle of Fatima. It was here in 1917 that 3 children claimed to have received messages from what some Catholic theologians believe was the Virgin Mary.
In Fatima, children saw an apparition they said was the Virgin Mary. And 70,000 people came to this same sheep pasture. And people said that they saw a spinning silver disc. The Catholic Church, for a very long time, would not acknowledge what was happening with the children or Fatima.
The extraterrestrials give to the children a telepathic message saying you are not alone on this planet. We are here. We have been here some thousands of years ago. We observe you. Please prepare mankind that we will return again. All this story of Fatima went to the Vatican.
But is it possible, as ancient astronaut theorists contend, that the Catholic Church censored the messages that were received in Fatima?
The kids were given 3 messages, and the Pope refused to release the 3rd message. The 3rd message apparently talks about extraterrestrial life. Now that is sensational, because to me, to deny the revelation of that particular message, and that is exactly what the Pope did. And I wonder why.
Some contend that the miracle of Fatima is one of many events that describe visitations from extraterrestrial messengers. Researchers also point to the voices described by Joan of Arc, visions received in Lourdes by Bernadette Soubirous, and countless stories depicted in the Hebrew Bible, in which similar events are described. Perhaps the Vatican knows far more about life in the universe than they have acknowledged. But does a belief in alien life question the omnipotence of a supreme being?
Of course, the Vatican knows about extraterrestrial life, but to suggest that because extraterrestrials exist, that means there is no God is total nonsense.
the Giza necropolis, Egypt, 1993. A team of engineers uses a remotely operated camera in an attempt to discover the true function of what is believed to be an air shaft, leading from the supposed Queen's Chamber of the Great Pyramid. First discovered in 1872, archaeologists long considered these narrow tunnels to be ventilation ducts.
This robot traveled up this small shaft, which was too small for a human or any type of device to go through. And all of a sudden it finds a closed door, hinged by two little metal clamps.
According to mainstream archaeologists, the door and metal handles were intentionally built as a symbolic passageway that the Queen would travel through to the afterlife. But some researchers have questioned why this passageway would have been designed with a deliberate blockage. And why, on a plateau filled with monumental pyramids believed to serve as royal tombs, is the Great Pyramid the only one with such a door?
Egyptologists are very much fond of saying that pyramids are tombs and that they have been robbed at some point in the past. But the fact is that we have found in the 20th century a number of pyramids whose central king's chamber, so to speak, is intact. And when they opened the sarcophagus, they found that sarcophagus to be empty as well.
If the Great Pyramid was not a tomb, what may have been its true purpose? In May 2011, another team of researchers set out to further explore the blocked air shaft in the Queen's Chamber. This time, the crew used a robot equipped with a microsnake camera to slip through a hole and reveal what was beyond the door.
When they actually penetrated this small door, they found a hidden room within the pyramid.
What they found was copper fittings, or the metal fittings. Another feature of the back of these metal fittings was that on one side, the loop looked like it was corroded. The camera also looked down and scanned the floor. What we saw was red markings. My interpretation of those were, they were electrical symbols, but why were they there?
Could these artifacts be actual evidence that electricity once coursed through the structure? And if so, could the Great Pyramid of Giza have been built to serve as not a royal tomb, but a power plant, as some researchers contend?
If we dismiss the tomb theory and we look at the pyramid itself, we see something that modern engineers can really tune into and understand. What we have is a very, very precise building that has the precision of a fraction of an inch. Is something that is very noteworthy and not indicative of a simple agrarian culture. So what we have is something that is almost like a machine.
If the Great Pyramid was a sophisticated machine, potentially capable of creating energy, how could it have worked? Some researchers believe clues can be found by exploring underneath the structure. In 2000, maritime engineer John Cadman proposed a theory that the Egyptians pumped water from the nearby Nile River into a small chamber underneath the Great Pyramid. The pump could then create intense hydraulic pressure that would cause the entire pyramid to vibrate.
In the subterranean chamber, there is some evidence that shows that there had been water present in it, and that there's water erosion on the floor, and then up in the fin area, and then also because it was a hydraulic pulse generator, so you have a rarefaction wave, this extremely low pressure wave, which would have struck the ceiling, and the ceiling is actually chipped and that would have been from the actual compression waves hitting the ceiling. That's very evident.
The Yucatan Peninsula, one of Mexico's premier tourist destinations. Besides scenic beaches, the area is covered by thick jungle and pockmarked by massive sinkholes known as cenotes. The ground beneath the jungle is also honeycombed with caves. But here, in 2007, Mexican archaeologist Guillermo de Anda found a cave like no other. Following clues in the records of 17th century Spanish priests that hinted at the existence of a mysterious underground Mayan temple deep in the jungle, de Anda found a series of caves near the village of Tanzibichan. Caves not seen for hundreds of years, and with entrances submerged beneath centuries of floodwater.
Sometimes we have to dive into these caves. Sometimes they got very deep. The average of our research is about 140, 150 feet, but we know of caves much deeper than that.
At first, de Anda and his team found carved stone heads and broken pillars with 1,900-year-old Mayan inscriptions.
We have found columns under the water. And these columns are amazing because some of them are 5 feet high and at least 10 feet wide.
But as de Anda surfaced in the dry areas of the cave, he found what he believed to be the remains of a massive underground temple complex, including a concrete road, a crumbled pyramid, and bones. But why was it here?
The Mayans themselves have a very intriguing legends of an underground world called Xibalba. And it's believed now by archaeologists that what they found is what the Mayans thought was the entrance to this legendary underground world that features prominently in the Popol Vuh.
Could this dark and mysterious cave really be the underground world mentioned in the Mayan legends? According to the Popol Vuh, the written record of Mayan mythology, the underworld kingdom of Xibalba, meaning the place of fear, was ruled by the cruel lords of the dead, who made those who entered their realm pass through a series of torture chambers involving blood, darkness, cold, knives, bats, and jaguars.
We see here in this one archaeological spot an actual physical representation of what the Mayans felt the soul had to go through.
Might perhaps this cave of stalactites, sharp enough to pierce flesh, represent the room of knives in the Popol Vuh? There is also a room of bats and a trench that might once have been filled with blood, like the river of blood that Mayan pilgrims had to cross over. There are places of cold and darkness, and even a room with the bones of jaguars.
These caves were littered with large patches of spiders and reptiles and all types of tumultuous things that a human really wouldn't want to be exposed to.
Although some archaeologists claim this unique site was simply modeled after the description of Xibalba in the Popol Vuh, de Anda insists that items from the cave date back to a time centuries before the Mayan holy book was written.
It's not that there was this document and they tried to imitate what the document said. I think it's all the other way around. We believe that we have found the particular Xibalba of the central part of Yucatan. This is why we do believe it was a real place.
But if Xibalba is real, Were the lords of the dead also real? And if so, who or what were they?
According to the Chilam Balam book, which is the book of the jaguar priests, it says in there that at that time, the road to the stars descended from the sky, and the 13 and 9 gods came to earth. I'm sorry, road to the stars descended from the sky. Can it be more clear? I don't think so. Right there, we have a direct reference to someone that has arrived from outer space, and we have a written record about this.
Could the lords of Xibalba and other Mayan gods really have been extraterrestrial travelers? If so, why did they display such a thirst for blood and torture?
I do not believe human sacrifice was originally taught by the ETs. I believe it came in the aftermath of when the original teachers of humankind had arrived. The ancient gods, which were really just humans from another world, withdrew from the area, and the people became distraught. The more they became distraught, the more they took the original mythology and interpreted it in a much more literal way. So what might have started out as the myth about the sun dying and being reborn when it sinks below the horizon becomes literally the idea of killing people to make sure that the sun is going to come back up.